City and Liverpool have just 5 more league games to play, with Pep Guardiola's side still holding a 1-point advantage over Jurgen Klopp's men. Arsenal are 2 points clear of Tottenham in the race for 4th after those impressive wins over Chelsea and Manchester United. Norwich could be relegated this weekend if they lose and Burnley win at Watford. Mike Jackson's side leapfrogged Everton last weekend, with the Merseyside club starting a match week inside the relegation zone for the first time since December 2019. And that means Frank Lampard will be desperate to get a result against his former club Chelsea on Sunday. Before that, though, we have 6 games on Saturday, with Manchester City and Liverpool both facing potentially tricky games on the road. Tottenham have the chance to apply some pressure to Arsenal as they play before their North London rivals on Sunday. Manchester United and Brentford bring the curtain down at Old Trafford on Monday. And joining me to preview the weekend's matches, we've got David James, Karen Carney and Darren Lewis. Good to see you all on what could be a potentially decisive weekend in the Premier League. Norwich could officially be relegated, but in the title race, just 5 games left to play for Manchester City and Liverpool, 1 point between them. And David, you played for both clubs, so where do you see this one going?
Why have you come to me on that?
Straight in there.
This may, Darren and I were just talking about it. Is it the most exciting title race in Premier League history? I mean, if I was to say no, it wouldn't be because it was far away from anything else, but it definitely intriguing. And this weekend, as you said in the build-up there, Newcastle, a side themselves who have found new form, going to be tricky. And then the following weekend, without putting everyone a week too far in advance, they take on Manchester City. So Newcastle could be the title deciders in a strange kind of way. Yeah,
they could be. It does feel like with these 2 really tricky away fixtures this weekend for both Manchester City and Liverpool, Karen, we could see a slip up because it's so hard to predict where either of them are going to drop any points if they are. Could this weekend be the time that happens?
I think so. I mean, it's difficult for Liverpool with the early kick-off, and both on the back of the Champions League week, which is really, really tough. And I think that's where you might have a potential ability to drop points. I actually think City might struggle. I think that's a really tough game. I think Liverpool, their Champions League game was so dominant, and they rotated the squad. I think they'll be fine, even though it's an early kick-off. But you're right, this is a big weekend in the title race.
Can you see anything changing, Darren, or will they both just win their games?
Well, a feature of the whole title race is the incredible level of consistency that we've seen so far. That's what I think it is one of the best in Premier League history, precisely because of that just incredible level of winning and being able to keep pace with whatever the other club does. What's quite interesting about Liverpool is that they're managing their games. Mane came off after an hour. He didn't look too happy. Henderson came off as well. Jota and Firmino started Wednesday night's game on the bench. And it's that firepower that Liverpool can call on for the remaining games. They quite clearly are trying to manage their way to that quadruple that we're all talking about. But City keep defying the odds as well, and their squad is fantastic as well, and they keep finding solutions all the time. I do agree with you, Karen. I think Leeds undefeated in their last 5 after 1 point from their previous 24. They could be very tricky at Ellen Road tomorrow.
Darren is pulling out the stats already. I love it. Let's start with the first match of the weekend as Newcastle take on Liverpool. We'll hear from Jurgen Klopp on his contract extension. But first, Eddie Howe.
Go back to last week, we had a midweek game, Norwich didn't. And I think it can... I don't think there's anyone can second guess how that helps or hinders your team. So we've had a good week's training. We're prepared, but Liverpool are very used to the demands, physical demands that are placed upon their players. It hasn't disrupted them in any way throughout the season. So I expect Liverpool to be at their best, and in that case, we have to be our very best to get anything. We're playing an outstanding team, probably one of the best in the world, and a great chance for us to, as you say, see how far we've come.
It's, for me, in this moment in time, the place to be honest. It's this club offers. We're building a stand again. But that's just a sign that we never stop trying to develop and evolve the situation. We have a team in the best age group, but time is running. That's how it is. So we have to do a couple of things. We don't think about changing the team in the next 2-3 years, whatever. But you have to prepare the little things that you are ready for the future as well. And it's always the same. And that's why I really think it's a really good place to be, or a good place to join, if not the perfect place.
Well, this is the place to be, the perfect place to be, Liverpool, according to Jurgen Klopp, after he signed a contract extension. That was announced a little bit earlier on today, keeping him at the club until 2026. How delighted, David, will the fans be, the players be, just to know they've got that man for another few years at least?
Well, I was at Anfield on Wednesday, and the cheer when Liverpool scored or won, I think, would have been beaten had they announced that Klopp was signing a new contract. Marvellous manager. I mean, what he talked about there was that Liverpool as a club, and I think this is the beauty of it, it wasn't just him that signed a contract, it's his team. And the way that team operate, the way that the club operates, anybody who's involved with the Liverpool Football Club at the moment know that they're in the best place they can be to get the best performances. And where this is going to go when they get their signings for next year, I mean, they could do the quadruple this year, which is going to be difficult to beat. But what a great signing that is.
I mean, he's an incredible manager, Karen. Where does he rank for you in terms of the all-time great Premier League managers?
He's up there, isn't he? Just with how they've done it with the resources. We've seen what Everton have spent, and you look at what they've spent across the Merseyside, and you're thinking the trophies they've won, the style in which they've done it. I think when he first came in, I think it was Alex Ferguson said, he's the one we need to look out for. He's the big threat, and he's come and delivered. And what personality as well. But I am surprised he signed it, because if they do go and win this quadruple, there'll be statues outside of him, and rightly so. But what do you do next? I know there's a long way to go to do that, but surely you go out on a high and just go, right, mic drop, I've done it, see you later. But it's just like, I was a little bit surprised, but for Liverpool, it'll be the best signing they'll ever make.
I think he signed it because he wants to create a dynasty at the club. And I think that if you think about, if he stays the length of his contract, only Bill Shankly would have been at Liverpool for a longer period of time. And what he set out to do when he arrived at the club, and he did the press conference with all of my colleagues up in Merseyside, is he said, I want to get this club back to where it was. And he's absolutely done that. Not just with the winning, but with the style of play, with the connection with the fan base, buying into all the social issues up there and understanding what Liverpool as a club is all about. And I think him signing that deal, over this summer we will hear about Haaland going to City, and we'll hear about so many other clubs going to the big club. He is the biggest signing that Liverpool will make, because he has had a transformative effect on the club in the 7 years that he's been there. And I think as far as attracting players to the club is concerned, he'll do that. As far as the style of play is concerned, it won't just be winning, it will be imposing himself on opposition teams home and away. And I think he genuinely wants to do what Sir Alex Ferguson did at Manchester United and create a dynasty at the club that other clubs just can't compete with.
He must think then he's got the turnaround of players, because they're probably going to have to go through a little bit of a cycle. And you're right, because he's got that personality, he can attract those players, young players through academy all the way through and signing that. But what I like, he must have the energy to go again, because what they've delivered the last, not this year, 3 years, has been incredible. So as a player, your attitude always reflects your leadership, and he's high energy, he's demanding, and the players have to match that, and you're thinking, the amount of pressure he must be under every game to bring that energy to please the fans.
But you see, there's a terrific piece by Andy Dunn in the Daily Mirror today. Other newspapers are available. And he says, look, would he have signed this new deal if he didn't have assurances over Salah and Mane and the big players at the club? No. Would he have signed it if he didn't have assurances over players that are going to be brought into the club? We know already that he's future-proofing the team with Fabio Carvalho coming in the summer, and Harvey Elliott's already coming through as well, and Luis Diaz has arrived and he's looked like playing there all these exactly unbelievable. And I think he's had that level of assurance that he can build on what they've already done going forward.
I'm not agreeing with you. I'm going to say that Jurgen Klopp is part of one big cog, if you like, in a system where Liverpool Football Club operates. And there's no guarantee that Mo Salah will sign a contract, because if Mo Salah doesn't sign the correct contract for Liverpool Football Club, then it doesn't work for the football club. And if there's an assurance that the club isn't going to change its stance, all recruitment and everything is done in such a way that Jurgen Klopp knows that who comes through the door will be suitable for Liverpool Football Club, rather than a manager who has carte blanche over whoever comes into the football club.
Could they change that for Salah though?
If the football club want to operate as successfully as it has now, they wouldn't, because then it stops being what it is. And I think that's the beauty of Liverpool Football Club.
But don't
from
you
top
think
to bottom.
the assurance is that they will offer what they believe is worth keeping Salah, and then it becomes about what the player wants to do, rather than them maybe lowballing him and maybe not showing the ambition to keep him?
I totally agree. I don't think they're going to underpay him anywhere, but they know what the going rate is, and therefore if you don't want to accept that, then find it somewhere else. Because the club has to operate correctly.
Yeah, in terms of the timing of Jurgen Klopp and this contract extension, come at a good time, Karen, in terms of facing in what we look at in their run and in the 5 games remaining. This is one of the toughest ones for Liverpool, away at Newcastle at St James's Park, which has been absolutely rocking since the start of the year. Do you think that's come into it? Has that, the timing of the announcement?
It's just a massive confidence boost, isn't it? You're right. Newcastle, I think, are the only team behind Liverpool to pick up as many points in this calendar year.
Yeah.
So they're absolutely flying, and you're going in off the back of a very successful week for Liverpool. Beating United, getting through to the FA Cup final, Champions League, dominant, and then he signs the contracts. What a week! You're sitting in the dressing room going, "This is unbelievable," and he's still got the fear factor, Jurgen Klopp, and the energy, like I said, but. It's not going to be easy. There's the points there, as we said, so it's going to be a difficult task. But as Darren said, they rested some of their key players after 60 minutes, brought them off. I think they should be okay, but it is still difficult for them.
Yeah, you mentioned, Darren, a minute ago about Mane looking very unhappy to be taken off in the Villarreal game on Wednesday night. It's amazing considering how much football they have to play that they still want to be out there for every single minute. Does that come from the manager as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's exactly as Karen was saying, the attitude reflects the leadership. He is so intense. When he arrived in 2015 and he did a press conference with the chaps and he was saying that he wanted to bring rock and roll football and the gegenpressing, and there were doubters around, this is the Premier League, you can't bring that style of football here, you'll never be able to keep up that intensity. Well, that's exactly what he's done, and it's exactly what the players want to be part of. I mean, you guys can probably speak better to the wanting to buy into whatever a manager brings to a club than I can, but I certainly think as far as the likes of Mane and Salah and all those players in and around it are concerned, is they can see the momentum building and they want to be part of it, and they don't want to miss out on any part of any given game.
Well, if there's a feel-good factor at Liverpool, there's also been one at Newcastle, particularly since the January transfer window. How much of a threat will they be against Liverpool?
Massive. Simply because Eddie Howe's in charge. I was under Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, and when you're looking at what Liverpool are today, and what they could become is another thing, but what they are today was a slow process in one sense to get to that point. And Newcastle are ambitious. They want to be up there sharing the limelight with Liverpool, and they've got a manager who knows how to organise and create good play from a group of players. The signings in the January were good. They weren't the most spectacular signings, but what you've ended up, like you say, the second best performing team in the Premier League since that window.
Yeah.
But that's because you've got a manager who will be focused on, I wouldn't say upsetting Liverpool's chances of winning the league, but focusing on making his opportunities with Newcastle greater, thinking about next season. And he's got a group of players there who are, I'm sure, wanting to be on that boat for next season.
Well, what qualities does he possess? Because you know him better than we do. So what has he done particularly to get these players working so well together in such a short space of time?
On the training field, he is pedantic. Some managers are great managers, not necessarily great coaches. He is a fantastic coach. The one key aspect of him which I adhered to was the fact that his personality is very calm. Sometimes, in fact, in the first few games at Newcastle, I couldn't see the Eddie Howe that I saw, but all of a sudden, once things were going right, he was back to that calmness. And instruction, instruction during the heat of battle has to be clear and understandable. If you've lost your emotion, it gets confused. Eddie is very calm, gets his point over, they've already practiced, and then they go out and deliver.
How impressed have you been with them then, Karen, of late?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said, they had 100 million to spend, but we've seen a lot of teams spend a lot of money and still get it drastically wrong. And he came in right when they really needed to get out of a sticky situation, and he's done it, and he's done it in a really, really good way. The stats don't lie, the form doesn't lie, and they're safe. And what I'd say is now players not necessarily on trial, but he's looking now for who's going to be there for the next 2 or 3 years. And as a player, you know, they're safe now, but it is a case of, can we ruin the party? Can we be involved in this title race? And kind of, as a player, that's your motivation, to be the party poopers, really. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on.
You've never been a party pooper, Karen, have you?
Yeah, a party starter, me.
In terms of players on the pitch, Bruno Guimaraes, he took a bit of time to settle in, didn't he? He wasn't starting the first few matches after he signed, but now he's an absolute fire and chipping in with goals and assists as well.
Yeah, as the kids would say, he's a baller. Wonderful goals. The confidence that he has to score those goals is quite striking, given, as you say, he's only just come into the club and he's still getting his feet under the table. But he really does play in the kind of style that Newcastle fans have become accustomed to when the team is doing well. And this Newcastle is starting to remind me of Kevin Keegan's Newcastle, with the Cavalier style, the confidence and the swagger that they play with. And, you know, he does the hard work as well. He doesn't just wait for players to supply him in front of goal. He's a guy who gets stuck in, wins it, gives it, brings other people into the play. I think he's going to be a super player for Newcastle.
You know what's interesting? When they were going through those January signings, he was the one player that I wasn't sure about. I did a little study on all the signings, and that made sense. Trippier made sense. And this was the one that, because he didn't look fit. In recent games I'd seen, there was something about him. He looked slow in midfield. He wasn't particularly great one-on-one. And the fact that he's taken a little time to become a regular first-team starter would suggest that they've worked on his fitness. He's not a prolific goal scorer by his career standards, but what you're seeing now is someone who you'd think should be knocking in double-digit goals every season from his midfield position. So,
don't you think that would be key for Newcastle if they're going to succeed? Because obviously you got your goal. They haven't got a prolific goal scorer up front right now, but he's almost, and I say this advisedly, but he's almost a Frank Lampard type figure, arriving late to score goals from midfield. And every successful team does have 15 to 20 goals from midfield. If he can provide that and they can get a goal scorer, they can maybe start thinking about top six.
You should see his penalties as well. Yeah. Longest run up, most stutters, and scores.
What would you do in goal?
Fall asleep probably. Oh, it's amazing. You can see it online, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, this guy could, like Darren said, this guy could be massive influence on Newcastle's future success.
And just very quickly, David, on the St James's Park crowd, you know what it's like to play there. How much of an influence will they have on what could be a very tricky fixture for Liverpool?
Oh, I mean, the history between the two of them, I know the 4-3s occurred at Anfield, but I remember playing there for Liverpool, and they can get rather loud, they can get rather boisterous, and I think, again, I mean, when you're looking at good form for both sides, this is the games that fans want to go and see. They want to see the best teams playing each other, and obviously loads of goals and the right team winning.
Okay, well, if that could be a potentially tricky tie for Liverpool